Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Bowl TV. My name is Matt Cannizzaro, and you have tuned in for this week's episode of Inside the OC. Got another fun one today. We're going to talk to an OC and radio legend. His name is David Waswell. Somebody said, "What time is David going to be on the show today?" And I didn't know what they were talking about. We know him as the Waz, but first, let's bring in my co-host, Aaron Smith.
Hello, Matthew. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm actually a little disappointed right now. You know, our guest today, when he ran the Bowler Show, was kind enough to give you your own theme music for when you were on the show, and I come in and I just get my name announced. I don't get any song, any pomp and circumstance. Just here's Aaron Smith. What's that all about, guy?
Well, you get the ear-to-ear smile, and you get this one-on-one time with me. So I don't know that it gets any better than that.
That is a fair point. Definitely enjoy our time getting to chat with all these great participants of the Open Championships. But Matt, before we start the show and before we bring the Waz on, I want to take a quick second to give you some well-deserved recognition for an article that popped up today. I think you know where I'm going with this, but we got Matt Cannizzaro. Look at that guy.
How about that? World exclusive. It's global now. How about that? I do appreciate that. Dominic Gall at Talk 10 Pin reaching out, and we worked at the World Cup together for a few years, and he said, I'm always the one doing the interviews, and how about an opportunity to tell my own story? And that was really cool. So I appreciate that, Dom, and hopefully he'll tune in and watch a podcast or two. No doubt looking forward to seeing him again in 2021 as the world gets back to normal. So, Aaron, thanks for sharing that. Folks, if you have an hour or two to read that, I was told it's potentially the longest thing I've ever written. So we'll see. I take that as a challenge, Aaron. I think I could beat it.
This is true. You've been known to put together a word or two for a press release, but it is a great read. You can find it on Matt's fan page, on his Twitter page. There is one part I want to bring up really quick before we get to Dave. So I highlighted it, so hopefully it still shows up here. There is this one line that it says, "I bet it's pretty frustrating to work with me sometimes." Now, without any context to that, of course it is, but I love it anyway still. So with that was all about technology anyway. So, but
beautiful thing.
I read that and chuckled when I went through the article. But an excellent job by Dom. Great job by you as well. So you've definitely earned it over the years with all your great work at the OC. So congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir. Very much appreciated. And now another gentleman who's had the pleasure of working with both of us in various capacities. Let's bring him in. Again, his real name is David, but I don't know that I've ever called him that. From now, for the next hour, we're going to call him the Waz.
Yeah, that's if somebody calls me David, it does sound strange, and that is definitely my new favorite picture of you, Matt. And Aaron, although you didn't get your own theme music, you were the unsung hero when you came in and filled in for Matt when he was chasing down somebody shooting 300 or whatever was going on. So I appreciate you also.
Well, thank you.
Right, well, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Theme music next time would be great, though.
We'll work on it. You bring back the Bowler Show, and we'll bring back the podcast in 2021, and we'll do magical things with all this great technology. But for those who don't know out there in our Bowl TV audience, the Waz, again, hosted the Bowler Show every Sunday afternoon for, it felt like forever, but it was just 4 short, fun years, I believe. So we had a chance every time the Open Championships was happening. There was a segment for us each Sunday evening to talk about the happenings of the OC each week. And that was a lot of fun to be able to talk Open Championships. And we'll talk more about the show as we get into our show. But right now, let's catch up, as we always do, with the Waz here on 2020 Life in Kansas City area. Tell us about that. You got the wife and daughter at home, so some quality time, I'm sure. But what have you been up to personally, and how has 2020 been for the family?
Well, everything's going pretty good. Luckily, we're able to work from home. Gabby's doing great. I told her I would wave hi to her, so hi, Gabby. I'm sure she's watching right now. Around these parts, mostly everybody's still bowling. We had the 2.5 months shut down back in March through May or so. With a few restrictions, pretty much everybody's open. Leagues are kind of squeezed together a little bit. Some places you can only do 4 on, but we're allowed to do tournaments, and that's what I do here in town with my partner Mike Adamski, is run tournaments. And mostly we've been able to run them with almost as many people as we want to have, but the conditions are still, you know how it is around the world right now. And around here, we're lucky to be able to bowl. We see other states that can't bowl at all, that have restrictions that, allow only a certain amount of people in there. And we try to keep it safe and everything. But around here, that's kind of where we're at. Leagues are doing okay. Bowling alleys are hurting though still. Even though they're open, there's so many restrictions, and they shut down at 10 o'clock, and they have a certain amount of people they can have in there. So we're grinding through, and my friends who own bowling alleys here in town, they've taken a hit, and obviously they hope things get better. But we're still open, and we're still bowling here.
Now, without as much bowling and travel, and especially early on in this process, what did you do to entertain Kim and Gabby, and what did they do to stay sane with you home and around all the time?
That is an extremely good question, and probably the best answer is not much. I tried to golf some, of course, when the weather got good, but it's just I'm just like everybody else. You miss bowling. We miss running tournaments. There's a lot of work to them behind the scenes. A lot of people don't realize until you start doing them. But I didn't do a whole lot. I wish I'd have done more. Now I look back and I see the two versions here of guys who took advantage of the time off with maybe getting in better shape. And I did not do that. But we spent a lot of time. You spend time together. Like I said, we're lucky. We can work at home. When I say we, I mean my wife can work at home. Pretty much a tournament only and take care of Gabby only guy right now. But as far as getting stuff done, I had a nice list of stuff to do at home, and I got a few things done, but not many.
Fair enough. Well, we've talked about your current life. Let's turn back the clock a little bit, talk about your past life. Of course, we know you as the Bowler Show guy and an Open Championships participant 24 times. You've been to the OC, but taking it back even further, you're a top competitor in your own right back in the day. Let's talk about that. Tell us about the history of the Was on the lanes.
Well, just like a lot of guys, I started when I was real young. My dad got me into the sport. My dad bowled professionally also. Fast forward to getting out of school, I thought I might be a professional golfer at some point. I got in the golf business, worked 3 years as an assistant pro at a course, and then realized I didn't really have much more of a ceiling. I'd already reached that ceiling and wasn't going to be good enough to even play on some of the smaller tours. So then I started getting better at bowling. Where I grew up, the lanes were, hard, and oil was placed on the outside of the lane, and the middle of the lane was dry. And, you averaged 180, 190, and, we're going way back. That was a big thing. I came down here, and the urethane had just came out when I'd graduated, and they figured out how to get the scores through the roof. And all of a sudden I started doing better too. And I took a shot at the PBA tour in 1988, I believe it was. The first tournament actually I bowled was here in town. It was King Louis Open over in Overland Park, Kansas. And actually qualified 9th, made the match play. First of all, I had to get through the rabbit squad back then. There was probably 120 people and maybe 10 spots. But anyway, I ended up 23rd in the tournament, and my career kind of went downhill from there. So bowled for a couple, 3 years off and on, mostly during the summer. I'd go out during the summer tour on the West Coast. Maybe 40 tournaments I bowled overall, maybe 12 cashes, a couple of top 24s, never the show. Since then, I just bowling leagues and a few tournaments here and there. As you know, I've kind of had to do the righty-lefty thing with my knee. Like another guy here in town, Luke Rostall, just shot 300 with his left hand for the first time. He's had some elbow stuff, so he's had to change too. It's kind of fun going back and forth, you got to mess with equipment and stuff, but that's kind of where I'm at in bowling right now. I've kind of more focused more on the tournaments and bowl a league or two each week.
Great. Now, when the PBA Tour ended for you, talk about that decision. You already mentioned your career highlight came right away, but then you chased the dream for a couple of years out there, and then it was time to move on. Talk about that decision and where you went at that point.
Well, it was time to make a decision of, hey, can I get enough money to go out full time? That was really going to be the only way I was going to have a chance to compete at a little bit higher level. Back then, when you first went out, it would take 2 or 3 years to kind of get acclimated to the tour and become a good bowler. Nowadays these kids come out of college and bang, they're winning right away. Things have changed a lot since then. So I decided to go back to a real job and start working at a wholesale bowling supply. The place was called Anchorman Sales here in town. It was second or third largest distributor in the country, and I did that for about 4 years until my dream job came up. And I always wanted to be a dealer in a casino, and I never knew that the casinos would come to me. And in 1994, when they did, I knew that I was out. So I stayed at Harris for about 20 years. Actually left one time in 99, went back out on tour and gave it one more shot, and was in East Brunswick, New Jersey at Carrier Lanes. And that's when I hurt my knee. I did it in a night block. Never felt like I did it on the approach or anything. I got back in the hotel and my knee was killing me. And I thought, well, I'll just sleep it off. I was 34 at the time. Just sleep it off, come back in the morning. And it didn't work that way. I had to withdraw from that tournament. And actually I was out there. This little sidelight story to the overall story. I was out there in New York, and the next tournament was in New York also. So I told my wife back home first, I said, hey, I'm coming home. I've hurt my knee. Then I said, hey, I could bowl a PBA tournament left-handed. I had no pain in my right knee, and I could slide on that. So I bowled a tournament. Actually, the first block I bowled left-handed. I was even for the block. The night block, I was about 180 under. So the next morning I said I was bowling right-handed no matter what, and I was 180 over, and I got back to even. So kind of had a tricky little thing there. But I came back home after that, and to be perfectly honest, the knee's been a problem ever since. So about every 3 years I go back to left-handed, and as I said earlier, it's kind of fun. It kind of, I don't know if I'd say rejuvenates me, but it's kind of fun to know, hey, I've got this coming up, and I can change and have a little more fun on the lanes.
Versatility is the key. You mentioned spending some time as a dealer. What games did you deal?
I pretty much dealt all of them except for Mini Bach and Pai Gow. I wanted to stay away from those games. Those were not fun. Craps was my favorite to deal. It's the most, game that changes the most. When you're dealing blackjack, it's the same thing, same motions. Nothing really changes a whole lot. In craps, anything can happen, and you can get real busy. Night goes faster. Just a lot more action, a lot more interaction with the people. And then I also dealt poker. And somewhere around the mid-2000s, they decided that you had to choose between poker or all the other games in the casino. They were splitting it off. But if you chose poker, you got to keep your own tips. So at that point, I chose poker. And for that reason, and dealt that probably the last 10 years of time at Harris. So I got a lot of experience in those games. And I'm not ruling out ever going back to that. But the hours and stuff like that kind of wore on me after a while. And that's kind of why I'm doing tournaments around town now.
I hear you. I have a small gap of time during my OC tournament career of working where I too took up the dealing pastime. So I worked at a horseshoe up in Northwest Indiana for about a year and a half, blackjack and Pai Gow. So between us, we got most of the bases covered here. But yeah, so I kind of can relate to some of those stories. The thing I can't relate though to is trying to see the lane left-handed versus seeing the lane right-handed. So, when you were going through that, I can talk to Matt about that all day, but I have no idea what he's ever saying because I'm not left-handed. But for you going through that process, just how different does the lane look for you from when you're right-handed versus when you're left-handed, or does everything kind of correlate after time and you just kind of see the same shapes, see the same kind of everything?
It's two different worlds. On right-handed, I throw it slow, hook the lane. Left-handed, I throw it as about as straight as you could possibly imagine. And I don't know if that has anything to do with, my knee or what it is, but it doesn't look the same at all. I can joke around, obviously, to me on house. Yeah, overall, lefty's going to have an advantage on sports shots, tournaments, not so much overall. So it's fun to be able to kid back and forth with some of the bowlers. If I throw a Brooklyn, I can say, hey, that's my pocket sometimes, so I can use that. But yeah, they're two different worlds. It's the average is overall, I would say, is probably 5, maybe 10 pins lower, and it's house specific too. I don't branch out and really bowl any tournaments left-handed. But it's I don't know, it gives, like you said, ball roll. I don't think about it a lot, but when I try to throw some new releases, I think, when I'm bowling left-handed, I think, man, I wonder what that would do if I was hooking the whole lane like I do right-handed. I mean, not so much anymore, but I still hook it a lot more, and it's slower. But it's it takes maybe a month to get back into it. Left-handed spares, not so much. That takes quite a while to get back. Right-handed spares, watching me throw spares right-handed is an adventure. I'm actually very good at it. I throw back up at a lot of shots, one-handed, and it's one of the best things I ever did for my spare game. 10 pins. I might miss them here and there, but I never think I'm going to miss one. It's like right-handed. You just use the whole lane, and then usually on house it finds its way over there. But a lot of people say, "Hey, that's great that you do that at the 10-pin," but it's actually been more valuable for washouts, 310s, 369 10s. Really, the only spare that I leave that I can chop is the 245, because whichever way, the 610 or the 47, I go at it, towards it, and I can't chop it. So it's actually a pretty valuable thing that I picked up, and it saved me some pins.
There you have it. Very fruitful being left-handed. I remember those days well. And Aaron Smith, you mentioned the casino stint that you had. I'm glad you finally realized that there really is nothing better than this, and you came back. So
I can't argue.
Not always greener.
Cannot argue that.
All right. Well, very cool story. I certainly wanted to hear more about that lefty-righty thing. That's nice to have. I think most of us have enough trouble being good at one of them, but to be tournament quality at both, that's pretty phenomenal as well. And now overall, I believe you're a sports guy, and then that transitions, I think, more to your radio background and some of the things that you do outside of what you've already mentioned. Tell us about that, and then we'll talk about the creation of the Bowler Show, which is pretty awesome, and really the reason that we're all here today right now.
Yeah, that's a good segue, because I've been real lucky in life with jobs, as we've just talked about: the golf course, the casino, and the bowling alley. My 3 favorite things to do are to golf, to gamble, and to bowl. So I've never had a job outside of any of those 3 venues. So I've been very lucky. I've always been able to go to work and never think about it as work. Of course, casino, especially times where you're working pretty hard, and even at the warehouse for Anchorman sales, it was the same thing. It was there's a lot of work, but it's rewarding. You're in the field that you want to be in, and even now doing the tournaments, I feel like, hey, this is what I want to do. I've never had a job where I was in a cubicle or had to dig ditches or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I would not be good at that. I've been lucky to do those, and being in sports, that led to the original. I don't want to jump ahead here, but that led to the original show, which was called the Sports Schmucks. And that's how the Bowler Show ended up spawning away. But my love of sports goes way back. My dad, same thing, as he was bowling, he watched everything: football, baseball, basketball, you name it. So always been into sports, been lucky. As I said, once we started getting on the radio, started getting credentials for the Chiefs, credentials for the Royals, and that was a great perk. So I've been real lucky, and to be honest, very blessed to be able to work in those avenues, that all 3 that I like.
Well, I've been unfortunate enough to be called a schmuck multiple times in my life as well, and that's just a fun word to say as well. So it always gets a smile out of the crowd. But very cool, of course, and you definitely have the radio voice. Some of us not as fortunate, and that's why we became writers. But here we are, technology and evolution, and we get to do a little bit of everything, and the folks, they have to accept it for what it is. But definitely you could tell in talking to you, you've got that radio personality, and that's it's always fun to listen to.
Well, I appreciate that. I got the face for radio too, is what a lot of people say. And I remember introducing you and saying the dulcet tones of Matt Cannizzaro. So you have a distinctive voice, also. I mean,
that's a good word, distinctive.
I don't think anybody likes to hear their voice. It seems like when you're talking, you're like, or you hear a replay. That's probably the worst. And you think either, boy, why I really sound like that, and then somebody else says, oh, you sound fine. So. Until you hear it, you can hear yourself now talking and like, that sounds normal, but otherwise, maybe not so much.
Well, I did always know that once the entrance music was over, that was really all going to be downhill for me on my segment on the Bowler Show. But tell us about the show and how it began. And I know I didn't come in right at the beginning, so there's some growth there before I received my invitation. But tell us more about that.
Yeah, before the Bowler Show came about, there was the original show, as I said, the Sports Schmucks. And I got an idea thinking, hey, last 20 minutes of the show, we can just do a bowling segment and get a sponsor for that here in town. We can have a lot of fun with that. And, I can get a guest. I had some connections from obviously bowling on tour and knowing a lot of bowlers. And I thought, hey, why not? Let's take 20 minutes of the show. It's a 2-hour show, so no big deal. And we'll have a bowling segment. So we did that. We got a lot of good feedback, and I started talking to some other sponsors. And the next thing you knew, we decided to split up the Sports Muck show and the Bowler Show into an hour of each. So our guys who were doing the other show could do an hour of sports, and then they would leave, and then they'd leave me alone along with my technical guy, and we would do an hour of bowling. Well, it's went from there, and it spawned off even more, to where we decided, hey, we're going to need 2 full hours of the Bowler Show. And we looked around for a domain for that name for a long time and could not find a good name that wasn't already taken. So somehow nobody had the Bowler Show. So we went with that. That pretty much opened up some doors for some new sponsors, because you could, differentiate that from the other sports stuff we were doing in town, with the Chiefs and the Royals and reporting on those and doing that kind of stuff. But the actual Bowler Show, it opened up some avenues for Logo Infusion, for Storm, for some other brands to come on as sponsors and to get, my foot in the door and talk to some people and help out with the show. There are expenses, radio time that people don't even have any idea what it costs just to get that on the radio. And besides the little equipment stuff, that's kind of where, we had some issues at first, but we decided, we took a little break. We were on the air from probably 2009 to 13, took a break, and then we came back. And then Matt's predecessor was Matt McNeil. Of course, Matty McHonor is dubbed by Matt Cannizzaro originally, I believe. And Matt was giving us updates from, I believe it was Reno that year. Either way, it was from Nationals, of course. And it was, I thought, boy, this is an invaluable thing. And then Matt couldn't do it. We looked around for everybody else in the bowling world, and we came up with Matt Cannizzaro.
There you go. I appreciate that.
Cannizzaro's Corner was born. Obviously, he's the perfect fit there. He's right on site every year. He told us, hey, this week, so-and-so shot this. There's a new leader in doubles. This guy has 100,000 pins. Those were always my favorite updates. You're going to have lead changes, and when an ABR comes in there, or whoever, 11th frame, they're going to do their thing. But seeing those guys get out on the lanes, I was there for probably Glenn Allison's last year, and just seeing him out there and bowling. Bill Lillard, I believe, right, went over 100,000 pins here recently. Is that correct?
He set the pinfall record
on the spot here.
2015. So
yeah, that's right.
The big
so
one.
I enjoy those moments. I know you guys interacting with these guys. When they show up, you get to see everybody who comes in. But I don't know about you guys, but for me, those were my favorite moments.
Well, now we heard a minute ago the alarm in the background. Was that the breaking news from the Bowling Underground telling you the next segment for the Bowler Show?
It's a text. Somebody saying you're a star. I don't think I would quite. I mean, in that context, I thought my phone it is on silent. How that went through, I don't know. It's magic or something. But that's a typical rookie mistake, even leaving your phone on. But with Gabby, I like to still leave it on. But I remember many times and many, tech troubles that we had back in the day. You leave your phone on, all of a sudden it's like, you learn that the first day, leave your phone off. Speaking of which,
there it is.
All right,
you remember.
I'm going to shut this down so it doesn't become the focal point of the conversation.
I do believe on one episode of the Bowler Show, one of your guests was driving somewhere and had the navigation system telling you exactly where he was and where he was turning along the way. Some people are just so rude.
That was one of my favorite episodes with you. That was interesting. As the assistant in the background on your phone was telling you, "Hey, you're this far away. Take this turn, whatever." And I mean, how many moments did we have on the show? I mean, you try to avoid all that stuff, and you think, and especially on our end with the technical part. And to be honest, whenever I interviewed bowlers, they're on the road. They go out of range. That happened all the time, and they come back and apologize. I'm like, this happens all the time. So, but that was, that's some of the challenges of live radio, and you just fix it the best you can. Sometimes you don't even get the people back. You got to fill in time. And, but no, we had a lot of moments on the show. A couple of my favorites that you would do just time to time. I bring up something, and Aaron, you probably remember Matt doing this. I would bring up something about Matt, maybe the Florida Gators, something like that. And the next thing you know, he'd post my 24-year dubious record of not doing so well at the Open Championships on my Facebook wall.
Does it,
so I should have known that Matt has the power. Boy, right on cue. That is rather embarrassing. I think I got a 1960 in there somewhere, and you could cut it off in Albuquerque at 2000 if you like. That's I have no problem with that. How did you have that ready? You are the consummate professional, sir.
I tell you, we do the research. Aaron does the behind the scenes stuff, and it's like magic. That's it. The perfect tandem.
Yeah,
I've got plenty more. We're gonna look at that multiple times during the show as we get into the OC part of it.
I appreciate that. I never get the the secret Wisconsin shot, or to be honest, our team has a lot of fun out there. We never break them down, right? So I'm blaming those scores you posted on that.
Well, we'll take a deeper dive into those numbers here in a few minutes. Right now, let's talk some more about the Bowler Show. Again, it was a great idea to have Matt McNeil on to talk about what he was seeing on site at the Open Championships. It also meant that for at least those 20 minutes every week, you didn't have to worry about getting a guest or many technical difficulties or thinking too much about what was going to happen in that time frame. How did that come about? How did that conversation start things? And you locked them in, and then I was lucky enough to be able to take over. But I had to take some weight off the shoulders a little bit as far as the show prep.
Absolutely, and for the last year or so of the show, Mark London would come on at 6:40 every week, and he kind of covered another area, and we talked bowling and some other things, of course. But as far as Matt McNeil, to be perfectly honest, I don't remember how it came up originally. I remember thinking it'd be a great idea to have somebody from on site doing that, and I really don't remember the conversation, but I remember Matt, being willing, just as you were, even though you got 1,000 other duties going on. The tournament's going on as we were on the air. There was always somebody bowling, of course, at that time, and it just seemed like, hey, this is just the perfect fit, and it was. And to schedule around you, I would get some people during the week, but back when they had shows on Sunday, I kind of want to wait for that winner. So I try to get the winner of whoever was bowling that week back when they had shows on Sunday. And, that was probably the biggest challenge. And that, to be honest, towards the end, that's probably where the downfall of the Bowler Show this last time came from. Was it? I don't know if I'd say stagnant, but it just got to a point where it's kind of interviewing the same people and kind of just going through the motions. And with the tour kind of being chopped up here and there, as they weren't doing weekly tournaments. Of course, they were putting 3 and 4 and sometimes more tournaments together at the same time, which obviously obviously is something they had to do for TV and for people, overseas and stuff. But it made it challenging for us to get, good guests on every week. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, having you and Mark, and especially you being at the championships, even when you weren't, we'd still have you on here and there. I know a lot of people think you work 4.5 months of the year and then you have a 7.5 months vacation. I will vouch that is not the case. But as far as us, you were on a 7.5 semi-vacation, but you would come on whenever we needed you. But just having you there, I mean, how else, I could read off the event page or whatever saying, hey, X took the lead, this guy's done whatever, but having you there, I'll just say it out loud. Having you there was invaluable to the show.
I appreciate that. And I will say that this time tomorrow, I should have an Excel document that definitely will support the fact that it's more than just 4.5 months a year as we look at our 2021 schedule. So appreciate all that. And now, besides the mats, you had a chance to talk to a lot of great bowlers, and whether it was because they just did something amazing or because they were amazing, no doubt some starstruck moments for you. But can you rattle off? And I see a question in the chat from Craig Elliott, who's your favorite guest? But any favorite guests or favorite moments or stories from over the years that really stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, we had so many, as you said, great bowlers. Pretty much, there's maybe a handful of male bowlers that I never did get on the show, but I got most of them that bowled during my time back in the 80s, and of course, during the 2010s. But nobody will ever compare to the time that I had Carmen Salvino on. And Carmen would, he would talk to you like you were best friends. And every time I would ask him a question, he would say, "You know what, David?" And he would preface that every time. And he would even say, "Yes, sir," and "No, sir." And I remember that part. But obviously, he could have came on the show and talked for 2 hours. But just listening to him, he has so much respect for the game, even now. With some of the the changes, the two-handers. Not all the old school guys are necessarily on board with that. Carmen didn't care how you threw it down the lane. But just listening to some of his old school stories, I just sit back and I'd say, okay, this is your forum now, and take as much time. And I believe he stayed for 2 segments. One time I had him on, so he was on for 40 minutes and could have talked the whole time. But talking to legends of the game like that, Johnny Petraglia, I could go on and on. Mark Roth we had on. It was, sometimes you feel like, how am I able to talk to these guys? And that to me was probably the biggest reward was giving a venue to these people to talk about bowling. They're really, at that time especially, there weren't too many podcasts or even, there was 1 or 2 other shows, I believe, at the time. But giving bowlers, even especially up and coming ones, and like when the PBA came back or PWBA came back in 2015, that was probably one of my favorite moments because that opened up another venue for me to get some new guests. Not that I couldn't have some of those pros on before, but now it made it relevant. And so a lot of the events, there was 3 or 4 around town here that were close enough to drive to. And a lot of times, I'd have them on right after the show. So Carmen Salvino's number 1. And, and even some kids I had on the show, they do something even locally or nationally, and seeing some of these guys grow up. And like I said, nowadays they come out of college and boom, they're ready to get on the lanes. They're not ready to cash. They're ready to win. And a lot of them have. Some people, Simonson feels like he's 35 years old to me. I think he's 22 now or something. He's probably 25, 26 maybe. He seems like he's been around forever, but these guys just come out and they're ready to win. And to be able to talk with them, either right after the win or somewhat, somewhere close. It was always fun for me, because, that's something that they didn't have before. They could talk right after on TV or whatever, but to take 20 minutes and speak about it and explain some of the things that happened in the band that, you would never think of. It was a lot of fun.
Now, other than the opportunity to talk to all these great folks and build some friendships and relationships and such, I think the show gave you a little bit of a legendary status of your own, to the point where you can go out and be recognized every once in a while, and that helps you go on to other things like charities and different things that are really great for the industry and just great in general. Help you get together with guys like Adam Barta and do some really beneficial and special things. Tell us about those things that maybe we don't hear as much about, but all of those things may be coming because of this and some of the paths that you've taken in your career.
Well, let's start off with two things. Legendary is probably pushing it, but obviously I wouldn't be on this podcast right now without the Bowler Show. I would be just another bowler that does some extra stuff for bowling. I look at it, I'm sure I'll look at it when I'm even older with the Bowler Show and think that was something I'm really glad that I was able to do. Adam and I got together a couple of years ago for an event. It was just Barta versus Waz, and it was in his house. We did a charity event there, and for two separate families. And him and I think we raised about $10,000 for the two families, and we had a lot of fun with it. It was a race to 80 strikes for him, and he gave me a 15 strike handicap to 65, and it was just throw as fast as you possibly could. And I don't know, 10, 15 minutes in, I was just praying he had 80 strikes. I knew I wasn't beating him. He was striking at will, and I wasn't doing so well physically. Let's put it that way. It's until you've done it, you don't realize when you don't stop how hard it gets after about 10 or 15 minutes. So Adam said the same thing afterwards. We had a lot of fun with it, but just having that venue with Adam to be able to do that, we're a rematch here sometime. It just didn't work out with all the COVID stuff going on. We couldn't do another event this year for two families in Kansas City that we raised $4,000 for the two families. We did a doubles tournament, had a lot of fun with that. You can't thank the people that help you out enough, because some people just give and give some more, and you can't do it without them. But having that venue from the Bowler Show, I actually did 3 Bowler Show doubles tournaments before this one. Had some PBA pros. As I said before, they came through town, so I had Missy Parkin and Clara Guerrero do the first one. Alicia Current and Lindsay Boomershine did the second one, and then the third one was Amanda Green and Brandy Branca. So they added a lot. We were able to say, hey, these guys are going to be here. Come bowl with the lady professionals, and we raised a lot of money at that time for the Willie Pollard Scholarship Fund. The man who used to own the local bowling alley where I lived passed away a while back, so we did that. So I probably wouldn't have done any of that. I'm glad you brought that up. I probably wouldn't have done any of those tournaments, any of those charity events without the Bowler Show kind of spurring that on originally. I'm 100% sure I really probably never would have got into that. But now that I've done it, I've tried to do one a year. It's been a little bit challenging here lately, as we said, with everything that's going on. But we're going to plan on doing the same thing next year, and hopefully getting back with Adam again too.
And speaking of Mr. Barta, he dropped by the comments, so there he is right there. Hey, buddy, love you.
Love you too, Adam.
You got a
profile pic. There you go. Adam Barta on the cover of Bowler's Journal magazine, celebrating that with the world. If you haven't checked it out, do so. Subscribe, get all those issues in your mailbox, and you never know who's going to end up in the cover. So talk about scraping. No, I'm just kidding. That was awesome. Adam Barta and Waz, you guys, what you've done for those charities and what you guys continue to do is awesome. Much appreciated. And in a perfect way, both of you guys, celebrities in the bowling industry, awesome to be able to give back and do that. So, but as a celebrity now, we'll transition a little bit here. We already got a look at your Open Championships record, but this is the Inside the OC podcast. So we're going to talk about the OC a little bit. But now that you are a celebrity in the bowling world, eyes will be on you when you return to the lanes at the OC. You know that. It's happened for, as far as I can remember, going back to at least 2016. Got a photo of you showing up at the Bowler's Journal. And then when it's time to go. We talked before we went on air about your videos on the approach at the Open Championships, and of course, you're going to see it here in a minute. So before we talk about your career, let's talk about one of the best shots of your career back in 2017, Las Vegas, South Point Bowling Plaza. Here it is. David Waswell stepping up on the approach. Wheeling it. There you go.
That was me posting the shot, as you could see. Not really posting, but pointing at Brian. When I turned around, like I said, it was a surprise. There was a person on my approach, but as you saw, I'm only a few steps on the approach. But that was great technical work there. I like that.
Well, if it takes the camera to get the strikes out of you, just let us know. Just grease the pockets a little bit. We'll be out there. We'll record the whole thing personally, and then it'll be a career year for you. But let's turn it back once again to the start of your Open Championships career. It goes way back, almost to before Aaron Smith, because you are now a vibrant 55 years old, I believe is the number. So going back to your debut, happened in 1987 in Niagara Falls, New York. Probably not a more beautiful place that you could have had your debut. So if the host city wasn't a selling point to want to come back and see what was coming up next in Jacksonville in 88, certainly just in general, very cool to see that venue. Tell us about 1987 and your debut. What got you there, what it was like, what you expected going in, and how you felt walking out.
Well, it's funny because I wrote down some notes about some of my favorite moments at the championships, and I forget that very first year, Niagara Falls, we flew in the day of the tournament. We had a 10:30 team squad that night, and of course now I would never fly in the day of, but we flew in the day of, and we flew Northwest Airlines. I remember stopping in Cleveland or Cincinnati or somewhere, and they said, "Hey, you're not going on to Niagara Falls." And we said, what's going on? They sent us back to their hub in Minneapolis. So we went back to Minneapolis, then flew to Niagara Falls, and we got there. It was too late. So there was 3 of our team members that didn't make it. They put 3 subs with them, and they bowled their team squad. So we bowled the team squad the next day. They put 2 guys on our pair. We thought, well, we'll see what happens here. And these guys shot like 650 apiece, and we shot pretty good. I think we shot like 30-50. It's probably the second highest team I've ever been on. So it's kind of a funny story, and I had forgotten that until you brought that up. So 1987 was the debut. You pretty much put a lot of stories with each year, but probably my most favorite story was from 2000. I believe that was in Albuquerque. As you posted that, I looked at that 1960. But back then they had a 159 and a 369 jackpot, I believe it was. And my buddies were saying, "Hey, it's $10. You got to get in." I said, "I'm not getting in that. I don't throw enough strikes out here." And he said, "Hey, you got to get in. It's $16,000. I said, "It can't be that high." And back then they didn't split it up. At the end of the year, it was cumulative. And when you showed up, it might be, that squad only, it might be 0, or it might be a large amount. So I said, okay, for $10, I'll get in there. And the second game of doubles, I go 159, 159, and 15. And now I'm on the hill of breaking the pot. So I told my buddies, I said, "Hey, we were splitting 50, 25, 25. And I told my buddies, I said, "Hey, this is going to hit the head pin. This is not going right. You go right, you got no chance." I said, "I don't care where this goes. It's going to hit the head pin." So I threw it right down the middle. Perfect Brooklyn strike. We're celebrating like we just won $16,000. So people are looking around. What's going on? I'm working on 240 or something. And they can't tell. And one of the lane monitors came over and say, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "Hey, I just broke the 369 or 159. I don't even remember which one it was, but." They said, "Well, it's like $1,600." I said, "No, it's 16,000." My buddy said it was 16,000, and he had looked at it wrong. So 1,600 with that squad money that was in there was like another 400. So we got 2,000. I got 1,000. They got 500 each. But the part of the story you don't think about is I was on the approach, thinking this one ball is for $16,000, and my friends are involved for a 4-piece. So that was probably the most pride I ever had in any bowling shot. That's one of my favorite stories because we had just come from Las Vegas before. We flew out to Vegas for a friend's wedding. And of course, it wasn't just about the wedding. We may have gone to the casinos and not done well. So when we hit that, we were chest bumping back when I could possibly do that. We were chest bumping and saying, "Hey, we're going back to Vegas. We're going to get our money back and all this stuff." And then the lane monitor kind of let us know that we had added a 0 in there. But it was still a good moment. It's still obviously a good hit. But thinking that one shot for 16,000 was that was a lot of fun.
Right, and so now I know if I ever need somebody to throw the shot for the money, you're the guy to call. But definitely, I think some of our best stories that we hear come from things that happen off the lanes as well. You mentioned the Las Vegas trip, and going back to 1987, Niagara Falls. I just wonder, after 2 visits of the Open Championships there, I wonder if they ever drain the falls, how many bowling balls they might find. I don't know what security was like in the 80s, but who knows? Walking off the lanes, how many bowling balls went down the falls as well. But we've seen it in some cities. I think Atlantic City in the 40s, 1949, I think they had a ramp. You could just launch it right into the ocean when you were done bowling too. It certainly saves on baggage fees, I guess. So it's one way to do it.
I know the depending on the airline, of course, 49 and a half or 50 and a half can be a big difference in your shipping costs. So getting rid of them, I'm not going to tell any of those stories on here. I don't remember doing it at the OC. I think I always think that I'm going to maybe not do as great as I do back home and don't get that upset out there. But there may have been a bowling ball launch down a road once or twice.
Very nice. Well, after that debut, you made it back for a couple of years. You made it through 1991, and then that would coincide, as we talked earlier, about your choice to leave the PBA Tour and go on to other endeavors. And again, your return in 2000, again, would coincide. You mentioned giving the PBA a shot back in 99, so the timing's just right. You came out. You must have been practicing a lot coming in, or just a different guy, or learned a lot as you got older. But 2000, you mentioned the big jackpot. Also, your career year at the Open Championships, 1960 was your all events total in your return. Tell us about that and the kind of the decision to come back and the preparation that went into it, and then to be able to put a number up like that your first time back.
Well, I missed it, and to me, it's still. I'm like most bowlers. It's once a year, and you get there, and it's 9 games, and it's done. All of a sudden, you feel like you've waited a whole year for this day, and 9 games later, all of a sudden, a day or a day and a half, it's over. So you put so much into it right before, between as far as practice and the logistics of getting there and getting teams together and stuff like that. That sometimes the bowling, it's never secondary, but sometimes you don't get you don't work together enough. And I think it's not rocket science. That's something you have to do out there. But yeah, it was fun coming back and competing well there. It's kind of an anomaly to me because I feel like there's some tournaments around town, some bigger tournaments, IB Open and stuff, where I've competed pretty good on some harder stuff. I have always had trouble at the Open Championships. I don't think it has anything to do with nerves, anything like that. But I just I wouldn't say matched up, because in most years what it's going to be like out there. It's always going to be hard, and normally you're going to have to play in, but you won't have much room. You've got to be accurate, and I would never say that I was the most accurate bowler ever by any means. I don't know if I'd say I'm a water sprinkler, but I need a little room each way. But that year of 2000, that was just the perfect year. I bowled well, hit the jackpot. And I guess it kind of emulates my pro career. After the comeback, haven't had as good a year since, as we've joked about on the show many times. The 1770, maybe 3-4 years ago, was fairly good for what I had been shooting. Some of the scores that you posted and hopefully never put up on this screen again.
They're coming back for sure.
I'm sure it will be, and I'll remember that in 21 when the bowler show comes back. But hey, it is what it is. I own it. I never, there's nothing to blame out there. It's going to be hard, and other than a couple of years, in the last maybe 25, it's going to be hard. And I just haven't matched up well overall, just haven't bowled well overall. And, but it's more than that. You get out there. We've always gotten out there 3 or 4 days beforehand and made it the last part of our trip. Now we're trying to kind of put it more in the middle to where it's not the end. And, you're saving all your money for brackets. Hey, I'm not going to go out and gamble last night, whatever. I think it's better to do it that way. And we have a lot more fun that way. And, the venues, and I won't get into that too much. I love Reno and Vegas. And I know some people want to go to different cities, and, it is what it is. I really love the stadium. And I love South Point also. And of course I like what's going on around it. So it doesn't bother me. I like going to Reno and Vegas. And, I'm not going to get into that too much, but anyway, the overall thought for me, just the stadium, to me, it's different than any convention center we bowl in, or even South Point. The stadium is what it is. And it was built for that. And to me, it's just a different experience, and you know exactly where everything is. I know where your offices were at the time, next to certain places, and it's the stadium's just different. And being able to walk to it, never having to worry about hey, we got to load all our stuff up, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to get the group together. You just text them, say, hey, we're going to go bowl, the Bowler's Journal, whatever. We're going to go bowl, and you did it. So. For me, I love Reno, and I love the bowling stadium.
Now, performances aside, you have come back almost every year since your return. We appreciate that, of course. And as you know and have described very well, it's not always about the prize money and the Eagles. There's so much else that these trips are about. But now you're on the verge of 25 years. The next time we see you, you'll be receiving a 25-year plaque. That's pretty special. And again, it may not be an Eagle, but it's something that bowlers strive for at the OC. It's very important and memorable. Tell us what that means to you to get to 25 years and to know how many folks you've been able to celebrate with over the years and be part of the experience with you. Yeah,
it's going to be fun. We have a guy in our group. I believe he's a 60-year Clancy Mueller. We've talked about him before. He's either 50 or 60 even, I believe. We're waiting for that next year. Obviously, we were hoping to do that last year. I've joked with you and Brandy about there better be some sort of red carpet for me going to the lanes, some sort of a giant trophy or something. But just getting your name called, even for the patches, is fun. You're with your teammates and you have a lot of fun with that. But yeah, 25, that's a big milestone. I'm proud of that, because a lot of people get to a point where, you bowl a few years and I may or may not want to bowl when I'm older. I'm still lucky enough to be able to bowl fairly well and have fun with it. I'm planning on going every year until I can't go. And I'm looking forward to the 25th year next year.
Now, you're part of a pretty big group as well. Toby Contreras, right, keeps everything organized for you guys, a coordinator, captain's club member. So definitely some hard work there on his part, and some great rewards for him. And we can't appreciate that enough. But as far as being part of the group, it has to be comforting to be surrounded by folks you're familiar with and friends with. But sometimes that means somebody can't make it. Somebody new has to go. What do you do to recruit somebody? What do you tell them about the Open Championships? As you've described very well so far, many of the great things about the event and the venues. But if you're selling it to somebody who's been kind of wondering what it's like and if they want to go for the first time, what's your sales pitch?
Well, to the people who have bowled league back home, my first sales pitch is this will be nothing like you've ever bowled on. Now, you're going out with your friends. You're going to have a lot of fun. And to be perfectly honest, the lanes are going to be challenging. And one particular guy we brought in, I said, hey, he's a 190 bowler. I said, you might not break 400. And he kind of laughed at me and he said, oh, I'll break 400. Well, make a long story short, the last game, he leaves the 1-5 in the 10th frame, takes out the 1 and shoots 399. Mm-hmm. So the sales pitch for him, maybe not as good as for other people, but I just try to tell people it's a vacation. And there's bowling involved, but you're with your friends, same people you're with back home. As you said, hats off to Toby. I ran 2 teams for about 8 to 10 years. And I pulled my hair out a lot of times trying to get that together just 10 people. So him to do 20 or even more, I think a couple of years, that's pretty amazing. It's really hard, and they do a good job with shirts and Sherwin does a lot of the work. I'll take Toby out of that equation a little bit, but Toby does a lot for bowling. Toby's been around town, has one tour title, of course, back in '83, I believe. I was Rookie of the Year on the PBA tour at the time, and works with USBC. And then now he is actually going to be the new Midwest region director of the PBA. So he's taking over for the Webbers. So he does a lot to give back to bowling. So I'm glad you brought him up. But my actual sales pitch is more about being with family, being with your friends, the vacation. And if you do great in bowling, that's a plus. But overall, it's about being with your friends.
We do know on some of these trips, you get to take your wife with you, and you guys have even made a road trip of it, driving from where you are to all corners of the country. You even talked her into bowling with you one time. And I imagine that was a fun sales pitch over the open road. But how did that go? How did it go on the lanes? And I noticed maybe she hasn't bowled as much since.
Yeah, she's kind of stopped bowling a little bit. She's got some challenges. But yeah, actually I have got a video. Boy, I wish I had more time. I would have had it queued up for you guys, where she shot the 5.710 at Nationals and at Reno. And she took out the 5.7, didn't take out the 10, but that's somewhere way back in 13 or 14 on my Facebook wall. But for me, we've never taken Gabby along. Before I kind of just went with the guys, and then I started taking her every year. I don't know, the last 6 or 7 years, made it more of a trip for her and I. With Gabby's challenges, to be honest, there's very little time we're away from her. One of us, I couldn't tell you the last time one of us wasn't with her. So that makes it challenging for some stuff. Actually, she is at every bowling tournament we do in town. She comes to each one. She's kind of our mascot for the tournaments. All the bowlers love her. She cheers. Actually, when I go to the bowling alley to bowl, she cheers against me and for the other guys. And she will tell me in no uncertain terms that I did not bowl well when I didn't bowl well. So we have a lot of fun with that. But back to the Open Championships, to me, again, the 9 games come and go fast, but you spend the 4 or 5 days wherever you're at, and the traveling also, which I enjoy driving. I like driving to Reno or to wherever. Of course, it's a long way, and you don't get there as fast, but you don't have to mess with when you're leaving, when you're getting back, flying your bowling balls. I can take as many as I want. A lot of advantages to driving. I did the same thing when I bowled on tour. I just drove everywhere. I just felt like, there's a lot of country I saw that I never would have seen. So.
Now you mentioned, the ability to drive and kind of get to experience all that. I know, we had the video from 2017, but I believe that tournament had a few extra tournaments tied to it as well. You bowled a few of the senior majors along with that, right?
I think I started that maybe in 18, but I'm not sure. Maybe it was 17. But either way, yeah, I tied in the senior masters and the senior US Open as they coincided. Actually, that was Toby's thing, because Toby would schedule our event right after both of those events, so he could bowl those also. So that's the only reason I bowled, because they were in the same venue. I always wanted to bowl some stuff, maybe some senior PBA stuff, but never really had the chance. I still like to bowl like a regular tournament, maybe where the shot's not quite as hard. The Open and the Masters, especially the Open, is brutal. Even for the seniors, they don't make it easy, and that's the way it should be. And I definitely feel that way. But yeah, tying those in, I had two different times that I've stayed in Vegas for 3 weeks there and bowled all 3, and it was a lot of fun. And actually, I think one year, maybe even 2017, by the time Nationals come around, you should be sharp after bowling the Masters and the U.S. Open. So. A lot of good memories from those tournaments, and a lot of guys, that I never see, and a lot of guys that I had on the bowler show that, I never would see in person. And it was nice catching up with a lot of the guys.
Aaron and I both love Reno, potentially for similar or different reasons. I was very disappointed, of course, that I was only there for 6 days in 2020 and that we did not get a chance to unveil the newly remodeled stadium to all of the bowlers. It was awesome. Our office was not next to the bathroom, which was a huge plus. It was close enough, but it was not in the same location, so I was looking forward to that. We'll get there soon enough. Maybe we'll go visit just for fun, but looking ahead now to 2021, we've had the year off, a chance to regroup in many regards, but also a chance to miss the event, to miss the camaraderie, the travel. And now we'll have back-to-back years in our other home away from home, South Point Bowling Plaza in Las Vegas. A lot of cool things there about that facility, just about the neighborhood and about Las Vegas in general. But as we get ready and get back to it just a couple months away, what are you most looking forward to about being back at the event in general, and of course being back at South Point and Las Vegas?
Seeing you guys, of course. That's number one on my list. Number two, it obviously it's strange. You feel like you haven't bowled it forever now, just because you had 1 year off. But getting back out there, as you said, the 25th year is going to be special too. But just getting out back on the lanes and South Point. A different venue. It's not, it's not a convention center either. It's a bowling alley, and I prefer. If you look back on your sheet there, I think if you'll look at most of those, maybe not all, but any of the Baton Rouge, some of the Billings, I wish you wouldn't show those, but not as well acclimated maybe as to Reno and South Point. I prefer bowling in those. I just have more fun, and I don't know. I think I've done better overall, but I'm looking forward to just getting back with the guys again. You have 20 teams, you have 100 people from your city, mostly. Not everybody's from the Kansas City area in his group, but a lot of them are. A lot of guys that I've bowled with for many years out there, and just competing again. And you always think, hey, this is the year I'm gonna break through, and maybe this will be the year, and maybe you guys will. Put out the secret Wisconsin shot for us, or maybe get on an end pair and you'll take care of us. I know that's all conspiracy stuff, but maybe this is the year. Every year you think it's kind of like sports teams that start the start of the year thinking, hey, this is going to be our year. You think the same thing as a bowler. When you go out there, you prepare hard, and then when you get out there, you get punched in the face the first game, and then it's over.
Well, Aaron knows a little bit about that. He's a Cubs fan. But again, it finally was their year. It happened. So you never know. When you least expect it, you get surrounded by the right guys or just the right situation. It's a great reason to keep coming back. We certainly appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you out there. Now, we've seen it in the chat throughout the show. We talked about it a little bit earlier. But where's the petition? Where do we sign to have the Bowler Show return in 2021, so we can talk bowling? Maybe Sunday's not the day, maybe it is, but a chance to talk OC, talk bowling, and to get some of those guests back on the air and on the airwaves for you.
Well, that's probably the trickiest thing about the show is it's on Sunday, and we put it late enough, at 5:00 our time to cover most of the tournaments we do, but not all of them. So if it comes back, it might be a little later. It might be like 6 to 8 because we run so many tournaments on Sunday. Occasionally I'll bowl a tournament on Sunday, and there's a little bit of travel. So it's hard to get back to the studio in time. Obviously, we need to get past all this COVID stuff that we got going on to see what we're going to do for sure. But I've talked to my partner, and he's getting the itch just to do, his sports show. And as we said, it gets us the contacts to get us into the Royals games and the press box at the Chiefs and stuff like that. I won't lie. That was a very good perk that we had for probably about 10 years. And that was fun. And you saw a lot of people in both organizations that you would never see, and being in the locker rooms and stuff like that, of course, was a lot of fun. And not to get too far off on that, I want to point out one interview I had with a gentleman named Roy Firestone. He was on ESPN for 30 years with a show called Up Close. He did a 30-minute interview show, and he interviewed everybody. And I struck up a friendship with him on Facebook somehow, and I asked him, hey, would you want to come on the show? And one time he said, yeah. So he came on. He talked for 40 minutes, could have talked forever. has amazing stories about sports in general and all the people he's met, and that just makes me think about all the contacts I've made because of the Bowler Show and because of the Sports Schmuck Show. That just never would have happened. But to put a specific time or date, I have no idea. That would depend more on my partner, also, who is out on the road a lot. He's got to be there pretty much for the technical stuff, as I said. But if I had to guess, I would probably shoot for fall or winter of next year. And we'll probably do another, kind of like we've done, 3 or 4 year run, and that'll probably be it. But obviously no guarantees on anything. But that's kind of what we're looking for. I miss it. I don't miss the rushing around on Sundays when I've got other stuff going on, but I do miss interacting with the bowlers and giving them that venue to talk about bowling.
Well, we will keep an eye out for the news release and the social media posts, and we'll be ready. And if it doesn't blow up too big and you still have some time for me or us, or you want to upgrade and get Aaron Smith, we'll just look forward to talking about bowling. But in the meantime, you mentioned that you're running these events as we wind down 2020. Anything big on the horizon for you and your tournaments? Any wacky formats, or just anything you want to talk about before we go?
Well, we've got our grand finale. We have a tournament at the end of the year where $6,500 is going to be added to this last tournament that basically the bowlers have paid for all year. That's on the 19th. And then we have a doubles tournament right after that. And then January 1, 2, and 3, we have a triple header because New Year's Day has fallen on the 1st this year on the Friday, not falling on the 1st. Of course, it falls on the 1st, but it's falling on a Friday this year. So it's allowed us to do a triple header. We're doing a scratch tournament on the 1st, regular singles tournament on the 2nd, and then a doubles tournament on the 3rd. So we've got a lot of stuff planned this year. Nothing really wacky. We'll have an over under 40, over under 50, senior, ladies, stuff like that. But that is my passion right now. I'm glad we're kind of wrapping it up on that. That's something that, in a way, you feel like, hey, you're doing it, and of course you're making a little bit of money at the time. You're not making much, but you're making a little bit. But you're the interactions you have with the bowlers, and we have, I don't know, probably 1,500 to 2,000 bowlers in our database that have bowled at least one tournament with us over the last 4 years. Probably 1,000 different bowlers last year that bowled. So we've got a lot of people from a lot of the surrounding areas that bowl, and we appreciate them. We can't do it without them, and it gives you thought about, hey, there's not really a lot of other stuff to bowl. I'm sure somebody else could run tournaments if we weren't, or would run tournaments if we weren't. But it's nice to be able to do them and interact with bowlers. A lot of bowlers that you don't bowl in league with or whatever, and you get to see them. And before we get out of here, I want to thank Luke Rostall, who is here as my technical person today here, and who set all this stuff. And we're in his studio. And I'm not just saying this because he's with my brand of Storm, but he does the best bowl videos that you'll see on the internet. As far as I know, Luke is you just search your name on YouTube and subscribe. And he just describes things differently and tells it like it is. He doesn't say every ball, hey, this ball goes long and hits hard. And he just does a great job of describing it. And he's throwed right and left-handed, and has his wife throw too. So you see some different ball motions. So he does a great job. I just want to give him a shout out for allowing me to come in here and make this a lot easier to do.
We appreciate that. We'll certainly check that out and see what he's been up to. And Waz, I'm glad you're doing well. We appreciate your hard work. It does sound like you won't be coming to work with us at the Open Championships anytime soon, but maybe down the road a couple of years, as we've talked about. So looking forward to that possibility. Aaron Smith, before we call it a day, any final thoughts or questions for this young man?
Absolutely. We're just getting started right now. But, one of the interesting things, and it's always great to see you go live more than most folks do with the tournaments as well, when folks are making a run at 300 or title match, things of that nature. So that's always fun to see when that pops up on the timeline. Just showcasing bowling is always a good thing, especially in these times. So we're very appreciative for that. Tell my guy Ryan Burke to strike a little bit more and get more of those. So he's a phenomenal bowler. Got to watch him a lot collegiately. He's had some success at the OC too. But but yeah, Waz, it's been way too long since we've had this opportunity to chat. So I was really looking forward to today's show. I wanted to just let you know the reason the Bears did not pick Patrick Mahomes was so you guys could wait, or he was waiting for you guys a few spots down the road so you guys could enjoy that success. When you guys were talking about the optimism of each season, as a Bears fan as well, that just gets shot down each and every year. So I'm glad you're getting to experiencing that. But yeah, it's just great to see you. Hopefully, please send our best to Kim and Gabby as well. And we just can't wait to see you for number 25, bud.
Well, I appreciate you guys believing in Mitchell Trubisky. That may propel us to an incredible decade. And I know, it's hard. It was hard for a Chiefs fan. We've gone 50 years with nothing. I believe 85 was the last Bears title. You guys got back once against Indianapolis. Is that correct?
Indy in 2006. Yep.
Yeah, so it's hard as a fan. And then also I appreciate everything you guys have said today. And also you guys do a lot for bowling. And as Matt and I talked off air, it's not always positive things that people are talking about. And sometimes you got to deal with a negative. And you guys do a great job with that. And you guys probably get no credit from where you're at. I don't know exactly, how things are going or how you're treated or whatever, but you guys it should be known that you guys give back a lot too. You guys give a lot of time. I don't even know that, the first squad used to start at 7 a.m. and would end at 3 a.m. sometimes on some days. So I don't know how you guys do it, but you guys do a great job of covering the Open Championships, and it should be said.
We appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. Feel free to tell everybody, and hopefully they'll believe you. But thank you for that. Certainly, thanks for joining us on today's show. And for all the folks tuning in on Bowl TV, on Facebook, we certainly appreciate it. And this, again, was our final show of 2020 here on Inside the OC. We'll be back in 2021 with some great guests, and not too far down the road, straight from the South Point Bowling Plaza in Las Vegas. Hopefully everything gets to where we can do that safely and on time, and looking forward to that and seeing everybody back on the lanes. Coming up next week on Bowl TV, we've got the PWBA podcast on Monday. Aaron Smith and Jason Thomas will talk with Hall of Famer Fran Deacon. Looking forward to that. Always like to sit down with Fran and hear some of the stories. She's like the Carmen Salvino of the PWBA Tour. Just some great stuff. Looking forward to hearing all about that. But for now, we had a great show. We talked bowling. We talked football. We talked about it all, and we caught up with a great ambassador for the sport, David Waswell, and look forward to what's coming up in 2021. Folks, for the last time here in 2020, that's the news for now. We'll see you on the lanes.